Okay. I'm going to call this meeting to order. It is 4:05, I believe, January 18th, 2024. So we will start, do we have
Minutes.
the actionable meeting items on here? No? Okay. Then we'll just start with our Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And the Texas pledge.
Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Very good. Oh, this chair's stuck up today. Okay. Okay, so first we will have the approval of the minutes from our December 21st, 2023 meeting. Those are right behind your agenda in your binder.
I make the motion, we accept the minutes.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Are there any discussion or concerns with anything before you? If not, all those in favor for accepting the minutes, aye.
Aye.
And all those opposed, same sign. Okay, minutes are approved. Our regular agenda today is discussion and possible consideration of the amended zoning board of adjustment rules and procedures.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, board members, Juan Paulette, Interim City Planner. So we're here today to talk about and review some changes that we made to your rules and procedures. These were mainly made by our planning consultant, Nathan Dietrich, as well as our attorney, Jerry. And so Nathan is on a call, so he'll be kind of going over the changes that he's made. And between him, the attorney, and myself, will answer any questions, and he's going to go over the changes that they made.
Okay, great. So how do we want to start?
All right. Well, good afternoon, everyone. Again, Nathan Dietrich, third-party consultant working with city staff in the Planning and Development Department. And I just wanted to hope that you all had a great holiday with your families and friends. And again, we appreciate all the time and effort you put forward to this committee and the city. So today, as Juan has stated, that we have a workshop for you to discuss any changes to the rules and procedures for the Board of Adjustments. And the reason why this kind of came up is that staff brought up a question. We started going to our guiding documents. We looked at the guiding document, noticed, first and foremost that it was the last revision that we could see or could find was back in 2006. And in doing so, re-reviewed some of the document, and when going through it with more of a fine-tooth comb, we ended up finding some inaccuracies, some dated terminology, items that we really felt that should be included that weren't in there. And so, we decided to take on the task of comparing the current ordinance, local government code, and any other documents that kind of direct this board in what they do, and ensuring that there is consistency across the board. So I want to also start off by saying is that there are some other changes that we had noticed that will most likely be or will be coming to you at a later date. The reason why that is that we're going to have to make some text changes to the ordinance directly first before we can make the changes to this document, because they haven't been observed or approved to be changed at this time. But there are some things within our current Muni Code ordinance that are maybe not clear, and we wanted to clear some things up. And so that with those changes, when those do come down the line, we'll also be bringing this back to you to make those amendments at a later date. I just wanted to clarify that with you. So I want to start out by saying is that, like, why do we have these rules and procedures? And first and foremost, it's required by the ordinance under chapter 118-98. Basically states that this board shall have rules and procedures and shall adopt those and follow those. Plus, it is also a helpful guiding document to not only our board members, but our citizens, and how the board is basically works, and kind of the why behind why you volunteer for this role. So next slide, please. So the reasons for these amendments, I already kind of alluded to it. We ended up finding that some of the terminology was old. For example, they were saying chairman across the board, and obviously we have, a chairwoman, and so we thought instead of doing that, we would change the wording just to chair, just to be no sex related to it, and we would just say the chair of the board, and then we use that throughout the document. That's just one of the examples. And also we wanted to make sure that we were following all the ordinance requirements as stated within the chapter 118. And we ended up finding some inaccuracies. And so we wanted to make sure that was changed. And then also some of the intent with these older procedures wasn't completely clear. So we wanted to clear that up. So as I stated in the staff report, I kind of went through a bulleted list of kind of the high level items that were kind of the bigger changes that we did have within the document itself. But I think the best way to do it, if everyone's okay with it, hopefully it shouldn't take too long to go through the document. It's not a very long document, but I just wanted to show you that where some of these changes did occur, and then it gives you an opportunity to ask any questions while we go through that document. Is anyone opposed to that?
No, sounds
No,
good.
No.
Okay, well, great. So we'll start off. I think the best way that staff and I discussed is that it might be easy for you. The track changes document we wanted to include just to show you that, we did merge those documents, and you could see all of the changes with the strikeouts and whatnot, but it is very confusing. So it might be better to pull out the 2006 document, and then also the newest version that we created, and then I can kind of walk you through where those changes did occur.
And they're in the back of your binder.
If you put those side by side. One big item that we wanted to first, that both Jerry and I felt was important too, is that we want to make sure that from this day forward, this document has a revised clause. We won't see that here because this is not the final one, but it will show when the last one was done, and so that we can keep up with it. And we made some changes within the document or the procedures itself to state that this document by the board should at least be reviewed once a year. Just so even if it is a short meeting, but at least you'll have consistency in how you maintain these rules and procedures if there were any changes that were made. So starting off with organization, you'll see that most of the document, they follow all of the same formatting. We just kind of cleaned some things up. A lot of the times you're going to see within the document, the newest version, usually it is a little bit longer, but we just ended up, the reason why it's longer is because there was just more information that we gave in some of these subsections, just to clarify it further as to what the board does. So the first change in under organization was really just calling out our ordinance. We just added in section 118. -96 is that's where it's called out and discussed within the current adopted ordinance. Secondly, under officers, there was a small change there. We did not include the vice chair, even though that you do operate with a vice chair currently. That was one of the inaccuracies within our code itself. In 118, it doesn't call out that there is a vice chair within this board. So that's one of the text changes that we're going to do. And so that will be adjusted at a later date. But I just wanted to make sure that you knew that we were going to be including that at a later date. It also called out chief executive officer, and our city of Nacogdoches is run under the city manager. So we just updated that terminology to go along with that. But we also included, some additional duties under 103. Again, clarifying, just breaking some of that out just to make it easier to read. Not a many major change, but we just called out the chair and how the chair proceeds over the meeting. And then secondly, if in the absence of the chair, and then thirdly, what the secretary does for the board itself. Under 104, Robert Rules of Order, we ended up just adding in a second sentence, basically stating that a failure to strictly adhere to these procedures set forth in Robert Rules of Order shall not constitute grounds for invalidation of any motion or order made by the board. It just gives, again, it doesn't give anyone an opportunity to come back and, question the board in that particular proceedings under those matters. And we felt that this was the best way to state that. Another change right immediately after that, we ended up adding in, just for further clarification, some definitions of the roles of the folks at the city, which include the city planner, the city attorney, and what the attorney is supposed to do for the board. So again, clarifies that role. And then lastly, the secretary, and again, what the secretary does for the board. Moving on to under meetings, the subsection, section 2, meetings of quorum. It does call out a quorum very, very specifically. It just states what a quorum shall be in the original document. Again, just goes into further description as to what that quorum is. I feel that if a person wanted to understand that word more, or a board member that was newly elected would understand what a quorum means. And so we added in some further information on that. And then again, very similar, we talked about what the agenda does, and the agenda, and then following through that meeting, like the meeting procedures, is that very similar to the other one, but we just ended up adding some further steps in there. So again, a person that is on the board can follow this very step by step and understand exactly what's going to happen during the board's meeting. And then we ended up moving on to the types of appeal. I made a note here is that we put types of requests, but again, it is an appeal from an applicant from a staff member, whether it's an interpretation. So I think we're going to keep that as an appeal instead of changing it to request. But again, this just goes into further description as to, where this is called out within the local government code. It gives a little bit further insight, not just 211, but the exact quotation of where it's coming from. And then again, goes into further description of each of those steps, or each of those types of appeals that are being called out or would be being requested from any applicant that comes to the city. Is there any questions at this particular time?
Where are you? I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry.
We went over,
Sorry,
okay, we went to section 2 meetings, right? And we did quorum, board meetings, and then we went to, we skipped over the official records section? Oh, okay.
Oh,
And then we went to applicant procedures.
So, okay.
Okay, we're in
apologize.
4.8. Got it. We just skipped over those, section 3. Understood. Okay, got it.
Okay.
Sorry, I was just double checking it.
No, that's okay. And maybe what I'll do is I'll call out what page we're on in the old one versus the new one. And so then I apologize. I should have did that from the beginning.
I have a question.
Um,
The
yes, sir.
types, you said the types of requests is going to remain types of appeals instead of requests?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thanks.
Yes, sir.
I think that's where I got lost. I was looking
Yeah.
for a different subheading. I was like, oh, wait, okay, on it.
Okay. Um,
Okay, got it.
okay, so now we've gone through for the types of appeals, correct? And I'm sorry, we had gone through the official records basically is going to be basically the same, but it does break it out to further, with further definition as to what each step is for those for the official records section under section 3. So if it starts out with the definition, then it moves on to the application, deadline, and filing. And so that the newest version is just more robust than the old version. So that would be now, we would be on page 3 of the old version, or moving on to 402 on the old version. And on the new version, we would be on page 5. Hold on.
So we don't have the page numbers from the original documents. We only have the page numbers to the 44-page packet.
Oh, I see. I'm sorry. Okay.
No worries.
Well, then.
But if you just tell
I'll
us
call
the
it up then.
section number, we can find it
Sure.
with that, yeah. So,
Okay.
If you'll just call like
All right.
3.4, 3.5 out, that would be, we can find it then.
I got you. Okay.
thank you.
So 4.403 on the old called application required, and then 4.2 on the new version is, you'll see that they're basically the same. They just go into further description, and then it goes in for we called out a deadline for the filing application, and that is the number that we had talked about. The chair had brought up that we had some discrepancies in the number of days that are called out within different documents, and so Jerry assured that we had consistency with that number, and so that's why we added that section in there.
Thank
And
you.
then moving on to 404 under, I'm sorry.
I just said thank you.
4.4.
Oh, okay, great. 404, for guidelines for application and decision. Basically, again, it just goes through and it follows those same steps. Again, gives just a little bit of a different definition. All the guts are the same. One of the things that we would like to change in the future, or with this particular notice for this body, is that because you are the or you are the decision maker in these proceedings, very similarly to the city council, in the way that the posting happens for city council, it's different than the planning and zoning commission, which is 11 days prior to the meeting. So we would like for this body to follow the same as city council. So we would make basically just a small change internally, and we would send out our notices 16 days prior to the meeting, do the same as city council, just because that they're the decision maker in that particular arena, and you're the decision maker here. So we just want those same that consistency between the posting requirements. So we're going to be requesting for that to change there. And then moving on to 407, submission of evidence, and that is the same as 4.6. And again, just goes into further description as to what that consideration of evidence might be. And then the next 408 is the withdrawal of that request. And then there's an appeal for the board afterwards. Those are similar. I noticed that I need to update, I apologize, I need to update I think there was I must have made a word mistake in the Word program. So under 4.8, which is appeal after board denial, I'll be adjusting that along with the expiration of a granted appeal. Under 4.8, I'll be making some changes for that for when we do submit the final document to you guys here. Again, it's just to be consistent with that date and number of days that a person has that appeal. So we'll make sure that that is consistent. Moving on to section or under hearings and decisions. There were some minor adjustments under 501, but again, same information really. 502 is the order of business. There we have, again, just made some minor terminology corrections of the chair versus the chairperson or the chairman.
May I go back to public hearings, please?
Yes, of course.
I think that we need to say something with respect to rather than their, THEIR, because that's kind of inclusive, but I think we should say his/her.
Okay, sure. All right, noted. And again, also utilizing the terminology within, who is the person that is doing the, I guess the staff member that's working and doing these steps within the order of business. So we ended up adding, the city planner's name just so people know where that ownership is with the staff member. Moving on to 503 for procedures and hearing. Again, we just elongated, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
There is no comment.
Oh, I apologize. I guess I just got some feedback. This, as you can see in the old document under 503, it just says A, B, C, and D. We went into further description, giving it more of a step-by-step process as to what happens within that section for the procedures. And again, felt that it was necessary to further describe to a board member or the citizenry that what happens in this particular, in the proceedings for the hearing.
On that A
Again,
though, you'll want to drop chairman and reduce it to chair.
oh, under A, thank you. Okay.
Yes, sir.
And then I'm sorry, is there any other questions? And please, staff or Jerry, if I'm missing something, please jump in.
Well, once again, in the B part, the chair shall, or the chair shall next call on those members of the public who wish to express, and it should be there, it should, rather than there, it should be his, her.
Okay, noted. All right. And then under the board review, which is very similar to the board's questions, we just changed that terminology there. And again, just tells how the board or how the chair will direct any questions to the applicant, and really more of a procedural steps in there, and it just calls it out a little bit better, we believed. And again, as you go through these next couple, where it says vote required disposition of appeals, again, it is, it just, again, has further definition as to what happens in each and every one of these steps of the board's process.
Can I ask a
And for,
question? Can I ask a question
Sure.
on D under 5.3? It
Yes, sir.
says, it says, "It shall be the responsibility of the chair, in the chair's absence, to maintain order and proper decorum during the hearing." So if the chair is absent, how can the chair maintain proper decorum?
Yeah, I think it was supposed to include, that was a reference to the vice chair, they got removed.
And the vice chair is gone, so that clause should be removed.
But there's not going to be a vice chair, correct?
That's what you
But
just said.
At this time, anyway, I
That
think
clause.
that's the plan, is to come back and amend the ordinance to include a vice chair. I think it should be appropriate to have a vice chair, it's just not stated in your ordinance.
Could the ordinance just say that the board will organize itself and they can have a vice chair if they want one or not?
Good.
Yeah, so and that was a very good catch, sir. What we can do is that basically in the procedures or duties in under 1.3 at the front of the rules and procedures, basically states that if the chair is absent, right, the remainder of the board shall have an acting chair. And so that acting chair, so what we can do there is just say the responsibility of the chair is to maintain. We'll remove that and maybe just added a separate, it will say, shall be the responsibility of the chair to maintain order and proper decorum during the hearing. In the chair's absence, the acting chair shall provide the same, or something along those lines.
Question.
Would that be okay?
Question, you said there's another clause earlier that says that there will be an acting chair? Which,
Yeah, if you go under 1.3, it would be on the first page of the new version. Under duties, 1.3B, in the absence of the chair, the acting chair shall preside. The acting chair shall be a regular member, and it kind of describes what that person is, and how that person will be voted to be that acting chair
I
in
don't,
the absence of the regular
I
chair.
don't see that you would need to add a whole lot of other verbiage here, because if that person's the acting chair, they're functioning as a chair. So,
Okay,
I mean,
so we just remove that altogether.
maybe I'm wrong, but Jerry, what do you think?
Are you referring back to 1.3D?
If you have an acting chair that's behaving as the chair, then under D, you could just leave that, take that clause out, and that person that is acting as chair would be the chair, so they have to maintain decorum.
Yeah.
I would hope they could understand that.
So we'll take that out,
In the chair's absence.
or that whole sentence.
Yeah.
Because they'd be acting as a chair at that point.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay. And so then
Question.
moving on to, oh, sorry, go ahead.
So in this order, what we currently have at the end of our, so between. Following that, the chair shall order public hearing closed. Between D and, or C and D, C and E, and D, we've kind of had this moment where the board can ask clarifying questions to the city staff or city engineer, because often we hear the, so order of business starts, right, and the city planner records everyone here, the acting secretary does. City planner advises us of communications and gives supporting evidence. And then we open for public hearing, and the person who's presenting gives their presentation, then, or, the applicant, and then we open it up to the public for comment, and they're able to speak, et cetera. And then the applicant is then given an opportunity to review any of the arguments presented, period. But usually at that point, as a board, we have some technical or clarifying questions for the city. And that is usually whenever we circle back and ask the city questions, like, does that ordinance say it can be a fence that's green, black, or blue before we make a motion? Because we've then heard the applicant's rebuttal. So there's no opportunity here for the board to ask any of those questions or pose inquiry or anything like that. It just says we go straight
Good
into
point.
voting, which is fine. But I mean, I understand that we're only supposed to speak to each other as a board, but ultimately someone from the board looks to the city and says, so if this happens, this is what this means, right? And it's not usually an opinion question, but more a fact, right?
I think that would be under 5.4.
Board review.
So anytime prior to the time of vote called for, the board may call back any applicant or speaker or staff member for clarification of facts.
Okay.
within the hearing, or
Okay.
to answer one or more questions of the members of the board.
So we don't need to put that in the procedure section because
We
it
can
just
move it up.
follows right after.
If that would be more clear for you, we can move that section up to,
No, I don't think so, as long as
As long as
board review is part of the procedure.
Exactly.
That's a separate function. I think where it sits is where it needs to be.
Okay. Got it.
Okay. So, in addition, we felt that there were some other things that, well, in the old version, at that point, they inserted, the types of appeals, and it kind of gave us, what each type of appeal needed to do to apply. What staff and I thought was a good idea at this point was that we were removing this section really, and it ends up going to, in the new version, to the back under exhibits A, B, and C, giving that each of these interpretation or each of these types of appeal people can go to this section of the of the new rules and procedures, and they can flip right to this if they're looking for actually what they need to do to apply to these types of appeals, and then they know exactly how to apply for those types of appeals. So we just took that out of the old one, put it to the end of the new one, and then so that means that we would skip on the old version all the way to 804. And in the new version, we have Did I do that right? I'm sorry.
No,
And so then we would go to section, or we would go to section 6. And that would, we would have where we felt that this was, where a reapplication and then moves to the expiration of the granted request. So this would be a little bit different than what the other one of the original had. And then we went on under section 9, certifications and amendments under 901 certified copy. That would be now section 8 in the new version. And so that same information is there, but again, just goes through with a little bit more direction.
so 7.1 is basically 410 of the old one. So if you look at the old one, it's got 410. We moved it down to 7.1 just because in order of things, it would make more sense that, if you granted a request, they have a certain period of time in order to carry out whatever they're gonna do with that variance that may be granted, for example. So we just put that in that order after the decision has been made. So it's just logically in a better spot, I think, under the new rules than before. That makes sense? So, okay. And one addition that was made there in 7.1 was that sentence is kind of in the middle of the paragraph. It says, "In no event, however, shall such additional time granted exceed 2 years." Do you see that? Okay. That's specifically from the ordinance. So we added that in there, just so that's brought over from the ordinance as well. Sorry, Nathan, didn't mean to, I just jumped in there to clarify that.
No, thank you.
And then as a clarifying item is that underneath section 4 of the new ordinance, each of those types of appeals that we had talked about before, under A, B, and C, we also put them in parentheticals at the bottom of each of those paragraphs to say that it's referenced in the Exhibit A, Exhibit B, and Exhibit C, so they can go, utilizing this document, can go to the back of the document and then look at the additional requirements for each of those particular appeals. Again, just a helpful note for anyone that's coming in or wants to know more about the board or how they address the board and what they need to do as part of appealing anything to this board. Just more of a kind of an education thing also. But that's all, that's the majority of the changes that were done. Do you guys have any, and we did make notation of those changes that were given in regards to their comment, moving it to either he or she or her or him. So we will make those changes. And we will come back under 4.8 and ensure that those dates all work with the other dates that we were calling out within the document to appeal for that board denial, just to ensure that they're all the same.
David?
I have a question. In the appeals process, where we said there, or he or she, cannot a corporation appeal too? So if you had a business, they appeal. So that's pretty, it doesn't have to be an individual.
Sure. Has hurt them or something, I don't know what you put.
Can we say?
I mean, I see a very innocuous there. And that would be corporate, that would be me, that would be you, that would be everybody.
What if that's stated, his, her, and or corporate?
I
Or a
just think that's,
corporation.
I just think that's getting to whatever.
Yeah, I know, I know what you're saying, but, there is a possessive, and when we use the word there, it means, it just doesn't delineate. That's the problem.
I guess we could remove it altogether, right? You could just say, the chair shall then call upon those members of the public who wish to express support for granting of the applicant's request. Just remove it altogether.
Okay, yeah, applicant's request. Yeah,
So it's just calling on anybody and everybody, whether it's a he, she, corporate, or whatever it might be.
And I have a question. On 4.8, the timeline is supposed to be 90 days there? Is that what that was, right? The 12 months goes to 90 days? I don't remember, or I don't know.
I think it is 12 months.
It is 12 months there? Okay.
I think what happened here is, that's, 4.8 was, I think, supposed to be struck, and it was moved to 6.1.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
That,
Well, yeah, there's a second, actually, I might just
Gotcha.
remove that.
That's what I was
'cause we-
kind of like,
We
okay.
do have another area. Part of what we're trying to do also is remove duplicative statements. And so there is another spot in here where it states under reapplication, under section 6, that talks about the year period. So
gotcha. So just
so
strike
that might be
4.8 is what
duplication.
we're
So
talking about.
Yeah, I'll just strike
Got
the
it.
one 4.8, and we'll just
Got it.
utilize the section 6 for that.
Yeah, I think we
Thank
moved 6.1 at the end for that same reason that we moved.
Right.
Okay.
7.1 to the end, because it's after the decision has been made, so,
Right.
just from a logical perspective.
So
Any other questions?
do we have a vice chair right now? Because I feel like the answer to that's
Me.
no, but we do? Okay.
I am.
You're the vice chair?
Uh-huh.
Well,
If you're not here,
Thank
I
you.
get to do.
I think it's good practice to have a vice chair, I mean.
right. It's
we
just
wanted-
set up.
We wanted to make sure there was no conflict if somebody were to challenge these rules, like, why do you have a vice chair? You're not even required, you're not even allowed to have a vice chair in your ordinance. And so,
Gotcha.
wanted to correct that, then bring it back at a later date to amend the rules.
Understood.
So it looks like we do have a couple things that we need to polish up on this, but we really just wanted to bring this to you guys to workshop this out. If you had any other questions or even other suggestions that you may have, that maybe something is still lacking from this that we could add, then this is the opportunity to bring it up. But our goal would be is to polish this up and bring it to you next month so you could potentially adopt it.
Okay.
And, yeah, that's good. Amy had a good suggestion, adding page numbers to the document as well as table of contents would be helpful. I did want to point out the number 4.3 of the new document, here, the deadline. The language that's included there, as you'll see, is different from what's in the 2006 document. And that's one of the things we talked about,
Right.
about a month or so back, because there was a lot of confusion about, because the ordinance said one thing, our rules procedure said one thing, and I think the application may say something different, or whatever, but there was a lot of confusion about that deadline. What we have here in 4.3 is what's stated in the ordinance.
Okay.
However, I will point out that under the local government code, this language here that we have in the current ordinance, which is what I put in 4.3, is based on the prior version of the local government code, which had a reasonable time and basically left it up to the body to determine what that reasonable time would be. However, in 2019, I believe, maybe 2020, I think it's 2019, the legislature amended that local government code and reduced that, or changed that language to 20 days.
Hmm.
So right now, our current ordinance does not coincide with the local government code says. So that's one of those things that we need to take and get fixed with the city council and then bring it back to you.
Okay.
Okay?
Very good.
Just wanted to let y'all be aware of that.
Is there somewhere in here that I'm missing that says how many people are appointed to the board and how many substitutes there are supposed to be? Is that a,
But it's not specifically stated in these rules. It
Okay.
references the particular ordinance sections, 118-96.
right,
So, which states that there's 5 members and 4 alternates.
gotcha. Okay, perfect, thank you.
Yeah, and as we discussed before too, that we're going to place the verbiage that is currently in the ordinance, that it says that shall have, 4 alternate members. We're going to take out the word shall, and it's, because it's not a requirement. I mean, it would be great to have as many 4 members, but you might only get 2. So we're gonna be taking out that type of terminology. So it ends up adding some flexibility to the way that the board is done.
Great, thank you.
Is there any, and by all means, guys, is that if you would like some further time to read this through and then provide us with comments, our goal would be to bring it back to you next month. But if there is anything else pops into your head, or if you have any other questions in the meantime, please don't hesitate to call staff and we'll get you a response as quickly as we can.
Okay, thank you. Oh, I have one more question. Who signs these? Does it say whenever they're accepted?
So the chair would sign.
The chair? Okay, and the secretary. Understood. Okay,
And then it would be filed with the city secretary.
very good. Thank you.
And we are going to be adding zoning board of adjustment back to the title. Because right now it
Yeah.
just says board of adjustment.
Oh, okay.
So another matter that's not in these rules at this point, again, it's something we'll have to fix with the ordinance itself, is that under the local government code, the airport zoning board of adjustment can also be the zoning board of adjustment. It just has to be designated
Oh.
in the ordinance itself, okay? Right now, we have a zoning board of adjustment for the airport and a separate zoning board of adjustment for this body here. But they're specified out in each part of the ordinance, but they don't talk to each other. And right now, there's currently not an airport board of adjustment as far as the zoning is concerned. And so one of those changes would be to permit, which you can do under local government code, permit this body to act as the airport board of adjustment as well, for zoning purposes only.
Understood. Okay. Any other questions? Feel good about it? Okay. All right. Well, that's all we have, that's all we have? All right, well, we're adjourned, 4:53 PM.